Welcome back to another episode of the 2023 Kulwicki Driver Development Program Finalist Driver Profiles. I'm Casey Campbell. And we are pleased to be joined by Palmyra Main's own Max Cookson. Of course, if you've seen these, we're going to go through the drivers' careers if you haven't seen the other ones that we've done. So, Max, how are you, bud?
I'm doing awesome. I'm real glad you're doing these and pretty excited about it.
All right. So, what was your okay? This is typically a question I like to usually start off with. What is your first memory of racing?
I really have to say, so my go-kart career started off when I was super young, when I was 4 years old, 11 months. My dad got me like a kid, we call it like a kid kart. It's basically almost like a
Yeah.
miniature go-kart. And I just remember my dad telling me the story. He brought it home one day, and my mom looked out the window and saw it and said to my dad, "You bought him a go-kart, didn't you?" My dad was just like, "Yeah." And so I'd have to say either getting the go-kart and going to the little go-kart place the first time, and I just have a lot of really early memories of going to pass races at Oxford and Beach Ridge, which is now unfortunately shut down, and just sitting in the grandstands. I just have some super old memories of like when all the cars were like kitty cornered on the front stretch,
Yeah.
doing driver intros.
Oh
So
yeah,
I have to say either like I have some super old memories of those, and or the go-kart. But if I had to say my first racing memory, it'd probably be at Oxford or Beach Ridge, watching a pass race.
for sure. So, so you started go-karts when you were young. What was that like? I don't know if you remember much from those days, but um, did you have like a big memory that you had in one of those things?
Yeah, so we ran go-karts from the time where I was basically five until I was about 10 or 11, and just started off as as most people do in the lowest division there is, and kind of worked our way up through at the track we were running, which is kind of like a almost like a smaller track. The competition wasn't as stiff as it was at some other tracks near us. So we worked our way up through the divisions there, and had a lot of success. Like one season we won 14 races, and they ran double heats every night in 29 heats, and won the championship in that. And then we moved on to another track, Richmond Karting Speedway, which ended up getting shut down a few years after I got done racing. Has now been reopened. It's LST Motorsports Park, and Steve Perry has been running that, and doing an awesome job with that. We have some plans there to do some things this say this summer with some rent a cart thing, or not rent a car, but some show up and drive a cart memories. But not to get off track, ended up going and racing at Richmond and having some success there too, and working up into the unrestricted divisions. And then from there we went and ran on like the Vega Tour, which is a sanctioned
Yeah.
tour that they had in New England. And so we raced at Loudon, like on the road course section. They had a little sectioned
Right.
off go-kart track there,
Yeah.
and Londonderry and 106 Race Park, and kind of toured around, New England, Palm a track in Connecticut, and kind of did that for a year or two. And then,
When did
kind of,
when did you go to? How long did you go? I know you're probably going to continue this. When did you stop racing go-karts and where did you go next?
so yeah, we raced when I was five until, 10 or 11. And my parents ended up getting divorced, and we
Yeah.
raced go-karts a ton. I mean,
Right.
three or four races, a weekend, multiple go-karts, multiple racetracks. And I think really, we really just think I got, almost kind of burnt out, and my parents went through a divorce. So things really just
Yeah.
weren't great for, racing at the time. And, we ended up getting done and didn't race, for a multiple years.
Right. I know that, you know, regardless of how old you are, whether you're 8 years old or whether you're 18 years old or whether you're 28 years old, when parents go through a divorce, it affects a lot of people in different ways. What was that? What was that like, especially to experience that so young?
Yeah, it was definitely unfortunate, and put a stop to the racing at the time. I think that was probably the biggest reason, why we got why we got done racing, and kind of led me into some not the greatest times. And that's really kind of one chapter kind of closed and then another one opened, that we got done racing. And then that's when I took up iRacing, on the computer at
Right.
home, because I spent a lot of hours really just sitting in my room, playing video games. And that, like I said, that chapter closed with that. And then we went, on into the to the next one and started on iRacing, competing events on there. And when we won the big NASCAR event, on iRacing, and won that, prize pool. That's how I bought my modified for the 2020 year. And then
Yeah.
that's how it got
That's
going.
how
So
everything kind of worked out. And
yeah.
yeah, when did you start iRacing?
So I'd have to say, I think if I look at my profile, it's gotta be 2013 or 2014. So I was right
About
around there, 10 or 11, 12, somewhere in there.
right. What was 11-year-old Max like?
11-year-old Max was the same in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know, I just lived, really, really a good life, that anyone could really, ask for. We never really went through any, financial struggles or anything, that way. We always had everything we need, and, could go fishing in the summer, and, you know, ride snowmobiles in the winter, and,
Yeah.
hang out with friends and go to the movies, and, do everything, that a kid, wants to do. So I was super, super fortunate, that way. There's obviously, some dark times too that I think, everyone experiences, but I think for the most part, things were really good as a kid. And then, like I said, after my parents got divorced, things weren't good for a while. As I was mentioning, I spent a lot of time really just sitting in my room, playing video games, not really doing a ton. And it's just kind of everything, since I won that race on iRacing, everything in my life, since the end of 2019 has just been a constant uphill, ever since then. So I feel like that was really the biggest, turning point in my life, easily was that day and winning that. And just everything's just gone
So
almost as good as it could since then.
yeah. So you iRaced from like 20, you started iRacing in like 2013, 2014, and then 2019. How did you get this big opportunity with this iRacing thing? Like kind of explain like it's like what is this big race that you're talking about? Where is it? How did it come to all come together?
Yeah, so it was a eNASCAR sanctioned event. It was called the Ignite Series, and they only did the event two times. They did it in 2018 and in 2019. Zach Novak won
Yeah.
the first time they did it.
Yep.
And so basically, it was for 13 to 16-year-old kids that could run it. You had to be 16 right at the deadline. I made the deadline by like a couple days. Then I turned 17,
Yeah.
and so it started out. There was qualifiers in a legend, so I assume there was probably at least, 5, 6, 700 kids that started out working their way through the legends, and then it went to the modified. Excuse me, and that went to 50 kids, and then we competed in 4 or 5 races to determine the top 30. And then they did one race with all 30 of us in a tour modified on a fixed setup. So we were all driving the exact same car at Martinsville,
Yeah.
and it was a 100 lap race, and ended up qualifying second for it. And iRacing only leads to the 1,000. So if the leader ran a 18.122, I ran an 18.122. So it was the 10,000s that decided the pole, which we can't be able to see on iRacing. So it was super close, and ended up taking the lead like lap 3, and then had a super close battle with Parker Redsloff the entire race.
Yeah.
And so we were able to win that, and which was just unbelievable. And my dad, who never at all liked video games of any kind, that just wasn't him. He didn't like, I remember just telling him for weeks and weeks that I won this race on iRacing and I won this money and yada, yada, yada. And he just kept saying, good job, didn't believe me at all that I just made a ton of money,
Yeah.
sitting in my room one night. And like 3 or 4 weeks later, a check came in the mail, for 10,000 bucks. I remember his eyes just being that big, and it was unbelievable. And then that led into, originally we were supposed to go test a Pinty's car and a Legend car at New Smyrna,
Right.
and that ended up falling through. So we went with Rev Racing to Myrtle Beach before it was unfortunately torn down.
Right.
And Mark Green was there that day, one of the three Green brothers, who was, kind of my crew chief, and helping me out for the day. So I'd never, never at all been in a stock car before. And I remember just, that was the coolest thing. There was a stacker trailer there, and Goodyear helped them out with getting the tires. So there was like 3 or 4 sets of sticker tires. And I had no place, being in a race car at that time. I was a little bit chubbier than I was now, and long hair. I hadn't had a haircut in way too long. So I really didn't have any place being in a race car at that point in time. But it ended up just working out so perfect. And we won that in October and went down and did that a month or so later. And then that
Was
following
this
year,
was this in 2019? Just to kind of,
yeah, so that was at the end of 2019. So I won
okay,
it in October 2019,
right,
and then won the $10,000. So then when we got home from that, one of our good friends had a pass modified, which is like, for any of you guys that don't know, which is basically like a Camaro front clip car. And the rest of it would be like late model chassis in the back. And we run on like an 8-inch slick tire with a 602. So like a limited modified, or like it'd be like a Florida modified just with a 602 motor, so a lot less motor. So we bought that, or I bought that right at the start of 2020, and kind of worked on it and got it ready, to the best of our abilities throughout, kind of the spring and whatnot of 2020, and then made 4 or 5 starts, I believe, right at the end of 2020, and then went on with that car to the 2021 season. We ran the modified and won 7 out of the 14 races in the championship with that.
yeah. So, was this all, now this all happened in 20, right?
Yeah, so that was at the end of 2020. We ran 4 or 5 races with the car, and then in 2021,
Yeah.
we still ran the modified, and we were able to win 7 out of 14 races in the championship in that car.
And you hadn't been in a modified since all this happened.
Yeah, no, everything. I mean, that was, I only have 19 career modified races, and 7 of them are wins. That was the only experience, I ever had in one.
In a past modified, and someone that hasn't even been in one of those cars and had like, I don't know, maybe 6 years off from racing, and you win 7 races, and all the experience you've had was on iRacing. I mean, obviously iRacing has kind of launched, racing careers in the past. I mean, obviously the 2 names that I can, well, actually a couple, William Byron is one, Raja Karuth is another. You look at Parker Retzlaff, of course, who's now in the Xfinity series. Caden Honeycutt, who has made a ton of starts in the truck series and some in the Xfinity series as well. Where do you think you would be without that thing? Because it's like, it's insane.
Yeah, people always, talk about iRacing that don't understand it. It is, it's a simulator game. It's really, they've done such a good job, getting everything better and better and making it as good as they can. But I think the big thing, like you said, for all of us kids that have come up on iRacing, when you have a kid, like for me, my own personal experiences when I was younger, we always played around on fast snowmobiles and 4-wheelers and dirt bikes and whatever it was, and kind of developed those real seat of the pants feel, just that good old fashioned feel for things. And then, you go on iRacing. I really think iRacing can really teach you how to race, because I remember seeing an interview a long time ago with Michael Conti, who won the Coke series on iRacing a few years ago. And he always said, the racing within the game is spot on. And, on iRacing, all you have for, cues, you have your visual, you have your sound, and you have force feedback in the wheel. And that's all you have to feel those cars, because when you get up, into the higher divisions of iRacing, on open setups where you're having to tune the setup in and do everything, you don't have much to go by, to feel what the car is doing. So I think that's an advantage it's gave all of us, is we go from iRacing and having such limited feel, to be able to feel the car. And then when you get in a real life race car, you have so much more. You have your body moving, you just have everything that you could ever need. So it makes it almost easy in a sense to be able to feel the car and, feel the weight transfers and feel everything that it's doing, because you went from nothing to, having everything.
Yeah. So really after, the past modifieds, where did you end up going next?
So we ran the past modified for the 2021 season and won a ton of races in it and sold the car.
Yeah.
Made a deal to sell the car like 3 races before the year was even over.
Right.
And part of the deal was, they were paying a lot of money for it. So they wanted to buy the car right from Tech after the race. So we went out that season and we won the last 3 races with the car and won the last race at Oxford, the finale for the championship. And, did a big burnout and waved to the fans and went to Tech, and they bought the car, rolled over the scales, they put it up on jack stands. I don't remember what they did for Tech that night, but whatever they did. And then all the guys that were buying it, helped push it back to our pit pad, and they took the seat out and then rolled the car to their trailer. So it was really kind of bittersweet for me, because I always kind of name my cars and build a connection with them. The modified's name was Samantha, and that was my girl. So it was really kind of bittersweet, to see it go. You really build a connection with these cars, and we knew the people that were buying it. And it was kind of funny. They ended up calling it the same thing, Samantha, and then the guys who now bought it, Brian Hewins is a driver and Bill Stilfon's a car owner. And Bill used to be involved with go-karting, when we were kids and stuff, and they've ended up calling it the same thing now. So that's been really
so
cool, to see that kind of go through it. That was my first race car. I wish, I hope someday, down the road, I can eventually, get the chassis back and try to bend up some body panels and, have a wrap put on and hopefully have it someday, because I just think that'd be really cool. But we ended up selling modified, and then, well, to rewind a little bit, we were about 3/4 of the way through the season in the modified, and we had just been having a heck of a year. I mean, it was just, if we didn't, unless something went wrong, we pretty much won the race. And so before me and my dad had really ever talked about it, there was people, talking about us going to a super late model and, making the jump before we ourselves had even thought about it. So it's kind of like that really got us going, what are we going to do next? So we ended up selling the modified, and a good friend of mine, who had been helping us, throughout my career, Jason Ricker, used to work with Reed Lampher when he was running super late models, was his crew chief. And so he kind of worked us, through the modified, helping us. And so we ended up buying a used car from Garrett Hall, which was a distance car, which I'm still running that car now, and ended up getting that and, worked on it throughout the winter, got the motor rebuilt and, did everything, to the best of our ability. We'll touch on that later, kind of my learning through everything, but, rebuilt it to our best of our ability and took it to Jeff Taylor's at distance, and he put a baseline setup in it. And we went and tested one time and made a few changes to it. And then we went to Oxford, our very first time for a weekly race in the car in a 30+ car field, and started 4th in our heat race and won our heat race. And that put us 2nd for the race and ended up winning the race, our first time out. So it all started off, basically flawless. And, that's kind of how it got going, for last year's season. And, then we went back for the second week, and I was on top of the world, because all I heard all off season was, this is such a big jump. And, no one's ever, a lot of guys really haven't gone from a past modified and jumped to a super late model and had good results, it just doesn't occur here a lot, so I was on top of the world, my head was swelled up, I was the guy. And then we went back for the second week of race, and we ran 11th and almost got lapped. So that was a real eye opener to, okay, this is going to be a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like riding a bike, you never forget. But so that was last year you were talking about?
Yeah, so last year was the first season we ran in the super late model, and the plan for the year was to run all the Oxford weekly races and try to win the championship in that. And we ended up winning opening day, and we won another race in June, and just put together a really a good season. In the weekly races, only won 2 races, but had I think 5 or 6 second place runs. And at Oxford, it's really tough in those weaker races because once you win a race, you can't start in the top 75% of the field. So if there's 20 cars there, you're starting 15th or 16th. So those races are super tough once you win one. Like I won opening day this year and then had to start 20th and then 24th. So once you win one, it's super tough. But we put a really good season together, in 2021. And the plan was to run all the Oxford Week races, win the championship, and if we accomplished that. And towards the second part of the year, we started branching out, and trying our hand, in some pass races, and had a pass race in June of last year that really slipped away. We were having a top 3 day and led some laps in it. Ended up making just a super rookie mistake and ended up getting spun. And that was a real bummer for us. And then had an awesome Oxford 250 run, for my first attempt at those. Made it in through the heats and roll off 13th and picked our way, to the lead in that race on the first run and led just about 50 laps, and came home fifth. And so that was a really good payday too, in that race. And we ran a couple more. We ran a race at Thunder Road at the end of 2021 and had a super awesome battle for the lead in that race and ended up getting turned with 4 to go. And so that was a wicked bummer in that race. That was really the first pass race that I think we should have won. If everyone won all the races they should have won, everyone would win races all the time.
Right.
But that was definitely one that slipped away from us pretty good. And the following week we went to Oxford for the pass season finale and was able to pick up our first pass tour win, which was a super big deal for us.
Yeah. So that kind of, part of 21, 22 in this past thing. And now let's go to this year. When going back to this year, what was your plan to enter, what's the plan for this year, really?
So basically, we ran the modified in 21 and won Rookie of the Year in the championship in that. And then we had ran the super late model at Oxford in 22 and won Rookie of the Year in the championship in that. So the next reasonable step for us was to run to go to the pass tour and try to do the same thing and win both championships that they have in their series and try to win Rookie of the Year again. And now things have kind of turned in to trying to repeat our championship at Oxford. There was 2 conflictions that were going to start the year. We got a lucky break and got a rain delay or rain cancellation. So now we're going to be attempting to win all three championships for this season is the plan.
Yeah, so of course that's the Pass North, the Pass National, and of course the weekly championship at Oxford. So you're gonna be a pretty busy kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's it like to manage all that?
Yeah, it's just it's a lot of work, in the shop. We're thankful enough to be able to have my dad built a new race car,
Yeah.
this off season. So I own one car and he owns the other car. The other car we just run, at Oxford, kind of tailored it, for Oxford. Just a couple little things, just because Oxford's a real weird racetrack, So basically, have that car. You can tell the difference. The wraps are the same, but one has an orange roll cage, one has a white roll cage. So Alice and Gracie, white car, orange car, and so
Naming these cars, man.
yeah, you got it. You got it.
Just like old TR. So
yeah.
yeah.
And so one car we just raced at Oxford, so that car, will get the most use this year. And my other car, we'll call it the white car, Gracie. And that car just runs, at the bank tracks, we'll call it. So your White Mountains, your Thunder Road, your Spud, anywhere we'll go like that, we'll take that car to those races. So the work in the shop is definitely been ramped up, and you just got to stay, on top of everything, the best you can, to make sure, you're always putting yourself, the races are won in the shop. You don't show up to the racetrack, a half second off the face and fix it there. If you don't show up close, you're never going to have a shot. So definitely made things, a little bit more difficult, but we've been fortunate enough this year. We haven't had any damage to speak of. Just some vinyl's been the worst, we've had to deal with. So everything is going according to plan so far.
Yeah. So let's talk about how did you first find out about this program?
KDP, I'd have to say I probably really found out through probably Derek Griffith, when he was in the program. And me and Derek have gotten a lot closer, in the last year or so. And so I really say when he was in the program, and I remember talking to him a lot about the program, as well as Dave Farrington,
Yeah.
and who I raced with, all last year, in Oxford, and this year so far. He was also in the program, and then Cole Butcher too is also in the program, and one of Cole Butcher's guys, Kevin Nobley, has been a big help, to us so far this season. And then Kate was in the program last year.
Yep.
So I definitely had a lot of people, that was fortunate enough, to talk about the program, about, and get their advice on everything, and their thoughts. So I'd probably say, one of them is how I found out about the program. But it was definitely, I kind of feel like I'm the, kind of like they've all been through it, and now it's kind of my turn to go through the program. It's done wonders, especially for Derek, with everything, that he's gone through. He talks about, and TR talked about it too, the banquet, the year he finished second, made some connections, at the banquet that, led into NASCAR Xfinity Series races. So the program is really awesome, you know, and really the biggest thing, like Derek and Cole have said, is just the connections that you get, going through the program. Obviously, the money aspect of it is obviously awesome too, because this is an expensive sport. But the real big thing is just the people, and we can touch on that later too. It's just without the right people, in places, in the right connections, and the right people around you, it doesn't matter how much money you have or how good your race cars are. It's just you're never going to be able to make anything happen.
Yeah. So were you surprised when you got it, when you were a semifinalist and then you became a finalist?
Yeah, I was really, because I really didn't know, if I was gonna make it in. So I made the top 15, and then it was like, oh boy. And so I really wasn't sure, because this was my first year, applying for the program, if we were going to make that final seven. There was a lot of really good names, in the final, even in the final 15.
Yeah.
That was a strong, excuse me, there was a strong, group in there. And then to make the seven was awesome. I remember we were all trying to get it to load on our phones and refreshing Racing America, and trying to get to load and trying to get to load. And I was on the phone, with my girlfriend, and she got it to load before me, and she was like, Max freaking Cookson, you made it. And I was just super, super pumped when we found out about it.
Yeah. It was yeah, it was yeah, I bet it was I bet it was exciting. I remember calling you that day, and then I know you were pretty jacked up about it. So now that you're in, you're having a pretty good season so far. Before we get to that, I do want to talk about some of the charitable work that you're going to be doing, especially with the Autism Society of Maine, and just really kind of talk about how it's kind of, just affected you and all that stuff, and what you're going to be doing for them.
Yeah, so I really wanted, to do something for this year that really, really meant something to me, and that I really, thought would have a good effect on people and really help out. And my brother is on the autism spectrum, and so I figured, that was something, that meant a lot to me, and something that I could do. So the people at the Autism Society of Maine have been absolutely, awesome. We had a meeting together this morning, working on some more dates and stuff, to do this season. We went to their autism walk to start the year in April, and we have an event coming up at the end of June to go to a big, day they have at one of the colleges they go and stay at, like a weekend retreat type of deal. So we're going to be there for that, and super excited about that. And they've been awesome, and they've got some, a bunch of 3, 4, 5 events I think we're going to be able to attend this year. It's a balancing act kind of to juggle. We'll run 30 plus races this year, so make everything happen. And so they have 3 or 4 events, that we're going to try to get to, and they've all been, super awesome. And we've been doing, some fundraisers as done for a while with, a lot of the profits from our merch, going to a fundraiser for them, and going to do a handful more of those. And we recently just got in October they have a like a bike ride day, and so we ended up getting a bunch of bicycles, for that we're going to be able to donate soon to them. So really, they've been super awesome, and I really just wanted to do, to add to doing other things too that really, would mean a lot, to kids, and really get involved with mostly kids, because I just know how much of an impact, that when I was a kid, when would have an influential speaker, come and talk, whatever it was, how much those moments, meant to me, and how much I still remember them. And so went to a school last Friday, middle school, and got to speak with 4 groups of their 8th graders. And I really wasn't sure, completely how it was going to go. And it ended up going, so much better than I ever could have imagined. Um, each group of kids, was roughly 20 kids, and we kind of had 45 minutes, sectioned off, some other people there that day, doing other things, and had, 45 minutes for each group. And, we kind of had to move on, show the kids could walk around the car and check the car out, just because they had so many questions, about it. And, some of the kids were awesome, asking about the spoilers, and
Yeah.
all signs of different things, explaining, things to the kids, and what's the little tube coming off of the shocks, like the shock canisters. And they were just, completely awesome, and, talking about iRacing and everything. And then, kind of some of my life, since I was their age, and any, advice I could give to them. And then obviously told them my unfinished, racing story. So it just went so much better, than I ever could have imagined. It was so humbling for me, and to see, because that's the middle school that I went to, and to see a lot of my old teachers, there in the compliments they gave me, and everything was really just, it was really humbling and awesome to be able to go there and to do that. And a lot of the kids' parents have messaged me on Facebook and reached out and said thank you, and say they were talking about it when they got home, and they all got, like signed hero cards. And to get those messages, from the parents too, was unbelievable.
I bet that meant a lot. And yeah, I mean, it's to go to the school that you went to and do that, that's an even bigger. And who knows, no, maybe they're on the path to become drivers, or have done iRacing before, or one day want to work in motorsport programs like NASCAR or ARCA or something like that. So yeah. The last thing I wanted to ask you was about your season so far, because you've been having a pretty good year on the year so far. And you got a big race coming up at Oxford for another weekly race, so it's gonna be another win. And we'll talk. What's that gonna be like this weekend?
Yeah, so to add what you said too, with having a heck of a good season, so far, I think that's really just a testament to the people, that I've been able to surround myself with, and put myself in these positions, to be around these people. And I've been super fortunate, this year. I talk to Jeff, almost every week, who's our chassis builder, and talk to him about the race cars. And Kevin Nobley, who I mentioned, is helps Cole Butcher. A lot of the time he's down in Hickory today for the ASA race. So I've really been able, to put myself, in line, and surround myself with, really, really good people. And it's been able to, cut my learning curve down, a tremendous amount, because when we started in 2020, I couldn't have told you what a third link is. Like, I didn't know. I knew what I knew from iRacing. I knew springs and camber, and, the basics of racing. And to be able to learn everything that I have in such a short amount of time. People have made comments like that. I'm like a sponge when it comes to absorbing, information. And so I really think that's been the biggest thing that's been able to help me, this season and throughout my career, is just the people and, being able to absorb, all the information and wanting to absorb it, because if you ever heard the saying that if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yeah.
And I totally believe that. You should always, be humble enough and be wanting enough to be able to learn, from people that are smarter than you and, can teach you these things, and especially in racing where everything's developing and changing and getting more advanced every day, being able to stay, on top of everything and keep progressing. And, and another thing too is like every bit of knowledge that I have is so new and so fresh that there's not any bad habits, versus, guys that have been racing for 20 plus years, may still have some of those, old habits in their head about what they used to do way back in the days. And everything that I have is just brand new and fresh. Every
Yeah.
piece of knowledge that I have is, within the last 2 or 3 years old. So really think that's been the biggest thing for me is the people and, wanting and, being able, to be humble and just go get it and try to learn, every day, because I do all the work in the shop is done by me when it comes to setting these up, whether it's bump steer or setting shocks up or anything that you got to do setting angles on a race car, I do myself. And I think that's been super important too, because you get a lot of people nowadays, they don't have that connection, with the car. They don't understand, what's going on. They just say it's loose or it's tight, fix it. They don't know, why the reason is, to what's going on. So I think just being able, to be able to do that stuff myself, and progress and get better and build and learn and experiment with everything we're doing has really been, the biggest reason why we're doing what we're doing and having so much success.
Sure. All right. Might as well, we've done this with everybody, so might as well do this with you as well. Let's get to know you a little bit, Max. Okay, so what is best racing moment that you've had this year?
This year, I'd probably say the past race that we won at Oxford. Really was just a textbook day. Didn't have a super heat race. Heat race is always tough at Oxford. Everyone's on, 4 new tires. So we ended up getting to third in that. So we rolled off ninth for the race. And Kevin Nobley, who was crew chief in that day, he's always really on me about, being disciplined, inside of the race car and, doing your job and doing it correctly. In his eyes, the car's never good and you can always be better, no matter what the situation is. So he really helped me through that race. And the first 50 or so laps were really really patient and just tried to to preserve but maintain track position. And kind of 50 or so laps in, you could see the races kind of always go through a change at Oxford. It's like a light switch. Everyone goes from kind of riding and staying in line to all of a sudden everyone's slipping and sliding around. So, about 50, 60 lap mark, I felt like we really started to kind of start charging to the front and really wasn't driving the car any harder. They just all started coming back to us and just slowly picked them off and picked them off and picked them off, and by the time we got to fourth, I could see the leaders, were scrambling for a grip. And I was able to set out, around the leader and take the lead lap 102 and kind of sail off into the sunset. Really was just out front riding. And so that was really, I felt like the best, my favorite memory this year. And, probably the best race, I've ran in my career because, cars are so good nowadays. And a lot of times you get in these races and the cars are really close. There's only so much a driver can do to make up for a race car, but a driver can definitely lose a race. A driver can't win a race, but I definitely think they can lose a race, if they have the best race car. Then they can definitely mess up, having a good race. So I think being able to do that, in that race was definitely awesome.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Name three, and this is the final one. Name three things people do not know about Max Cookson.
Just anything, doesn't matter what it is.
Just anything, man.
Oh, geez. Three things people don't know about Max Cookson. Um, I have a gorgeous super late model, and I daily drive a 1998 single cab 2-wheel drive pickup that has a lot of rust on it and some aluminum riveted on quarter panels to get a sticker on it. Jeez, don't know about Max Cookson.
Interesting things that people might not know about.
Yeah, I'm thinking. My favorite soda is Brisk, if you consider
Nice.
that soda.
Yeah.
And every weekend at the racetrack, we have mac and cheese and meatballs.
Tradition.
Yep, tradition.
Gotta do it, man. I
Yep.
love it. All right. Well, Max, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us, and best of luck this weekend in Oxford. And let's look forward to having you on again sometime.
Yeah, thank you for all you're doing for us, and thank you for having me on.